Hello, you guys, and welcome to another edition of the Inspirational Woman Literature, Media, and Journalism Conference. Today we have Dr. Diane Hamilton, and she's receiving the award for being the Inspirational Woman in Media in 2019. Dr. Hamilton, would you like to give your speech today?
Well, I'm honored to be chosen to receive this. Thank you so much. I mean, it's a very prestigious honor, and I was told I should showcase some of the things that I've done to overcome obstacles to achieve my success. And that was kind of challenging for me because many of you watching this have probably overcome significantly more intense obstacles than I probably can imagine. I mean, I know some of you have survived abuse or grown up in families where it's not even expected for you to achieve certain things in life because no one had it in their experience. And I think I was fortunate, and it was really hard for me as I thought about my struggles, which paled in comparison to so many other people's struggles, to come back to some really compelling stories. But I did want to share some stories before I share my own stories of some of the people I've had the honor of meeting through my nationally syndicated radio show. I'm just going to touch on real quickly, but there's 12 people who came to mind when I was thinking of who had overcome struggles. And I think it would help motivate you and help share, my story later. But really what I wanted to start with was a woman named Halisi Nambe. And she is one of the most inspirational women or people I've ever met in my lifetime. And when she was on my show, she was telling me about a story where she came from this tiny village where there was no electricity or running water. And just to go to school, she had to cross a raging river, and she had to carry all her food and clothes for the week and even get a mat on her head. And, if it rained, the river would become really forceful. And some of her friends would actually die trying to cross this river. And she had to make the decision to cross the river every day. And she found, just this strength because education meant so much to her. And she was just determined to become educated. And she risked her life every day to cross that river. And today she is actually named the very first ever female vice chancellor of a public university in Zambia in Africa. So she's really been an inspiration to me. And another guest of mine, Dr. Maya Zelihic, had to escape former Yugoslavia in 1993, I believe. And that's when the war was getting really bad, and she was trying to get to through Hungary to get to Austria. And she was shot at, and she had to go to stay in a refugee camp for 3.5 years. And she just barely, escaped being killed because her car was riddled with bullets and snipers were shooting at her. And if a guy hadn't thrown her in a ditch, she could have been killed. But she went to the United States and she received her PhD, and she's now received the distinction of becoming a Fulbright specialist, which is a huge deal in the area of education. And some of them are, just really interesting examples, like Leonard Kim, who was, nearly homeless. He didn't have money to pay his rent or have food for lunch. He ended up moving in with his grandparents, and he actually decided he would start blogging. And now he's like one of the most successful ones out there in that area. And he's got 10 million viewers, and he's running an extremely successful business. Another one that comes to mind is of Paul Eisenberg, who found out his wife, Nicole, had stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma and cancer when she was like 9 months pregnant, and they had to take her baby quickly because she was sick, but the baby was okay, but she went through 6 years of treatment before dying. But what he found through that experience was that it helped him create this company, this group of people to help raise money for people in similar circumstances to pay for the treatments that insurance doesn't pay for, like staying in hotels and transportation. And he found out that stuff can cost like $30,000 a year or more. And so now he has Bringing Hope Home, which is really a cool organization to help people with similar problems. And, I've actually had several blind people on my show, and they all went blind in their lifetime. So they knew the difference, which was, a very tragedy, big tragedy to go through. And I'm sure all of you have seen Eric Waymare without even realizing it, because he's been on Oprah and a lot of other shows. But he was the first blind person to reach the summit of Mount Everest. And then he eventually climbed all 7 summits, and he did river rafting in the Grand Canyon on the Colorado River. Blind. And so, that's just an amazing story. Tanner Gears is another one who had a car accident. He had a tree branch actually go through his face and made him blind. And he went on to become a multiple Paralympic athlete. And I think Isaac Lidsky was another one on my show. He was a television actor who lost his eyesight, but it didn't stop him from getting a Harvard degree at 19. He became a Justice Department attorney and a CEO of Florida's largest residential construction services company. And he wrote a New York Times bestseller. So, I mean, his story was amazing. Carmen Gentile's another veteran journalist who was in East Afghanistan as he was reporting, and a rocket-propelled grenade actually hit him in the face, but it didn't detonate, but it blinded him in his right eye and it fractured his face. And he later wrote a best-selling story about it. Vanessa Tyler was born in Harlem, and she's the creator of a show called What's Eating Harlem. And she focused on how people handled diversity, and she's now an Emmy award-winning, multi-Emmy nominated news anchor and reporter in New York. She's really successful. Risha Grant, I love her introduction. She says, I'm a small-town divorced ex-preacher's wife, ex-Division I basketball player, extrovert, bisexual Black woman, and a serial entrepreneur in one of the reddest states in the nation. But she uses that experience to be a top cultural diversity expert. And Antonio T. Smith Jr., let me get that right, Antonio T. Smith Jr. Was abandoned and homeless, and at age 6 he had to learn how to climb out of sleeping in a dumpster. He spent his entire childhood homeless and was finally adopted at 14 and aged out of CPS custody at 18. But now he's a 4-time best-selling author, advisor, and speaker. And last of those famous people on my show was Cheryl Hunter, who set out to be a model, and she flew to Europe to be the first time, wanted to make it big. And not unlike what you've seen in the movie like Taken, she was abducted, raped, and left for dead. And she now spends her time helping others understand that there's hope. And she has a great TED Talk if you could get a chance to watch it. But now she learns, helps people how to be successful and self-confident and happy, and just no matter what happens to you. And if you look at the pictures of these people, and I don't know if they are able to share those pictures, but they all just look so normal. There's nothing that would ever tell you that they've had these struggles. And I imagine if you looked at my upbringing, you'd think, wow, I had it pretty easy. But everybody struggles. And I often think of people like Stephen Hawking or even just Halisi in Africa, who she could have not crossed that river. But you need to look at life like a river, and it may seem intimidating and overwhelming, and we might create a dialogue in our head that tells us, I can't do it, or it's too hard. And it's just our perception. And we all have either met or read about people who get out of these tough situations, right? So what makes them different? I think it's their mindset. And I think that, they believe in themselves. It's their desire for something better. And we can all sit home and feel sorry for ourselves when we're sick or have lost a job or experience anything bad, because it's normal to feel sad or bad or overwhelmed. But, successful people really do a great job of pulling themselves up and working on developing their inner monologue, our voice in our heads that tells us, we need to get up, we need to go. And they create goals, and they do them in measurable ways so they can achieve those goals. And they look at failure as opportunity to learn. Because if you have negative experiences, it allows you to appreciate the positive ones. So the challenge I had with creating this speech is that I didn't think I had the same level that you've experienced, maybe some of you. But the value I think I can bring is not by only sharing the stories of people that I shared, but just telling you a little bit about what I've done to achieve success. And although I didn't have to cross any rivers, I had my own unique experiences. I graduated high school early because although I enjoyed learning, I never really liked to be in school, which is kind of funny. I ended up with a PhD. But I took as many classes as I could actually to get out sooner. And I was always curious about the next opportunity. Even when it came to having children, I think I read every book on pregnancy prior to ever being pregnant. And I just have always had that desire to find out what it is about a topic, what I don't know. And I found that I had that in common with some of the successful people who've been on my show. And I believe if you can work on overcoming obstacles that keep you from exploring your curiosity, that's one of the most important things you can do to ensure your success. I can't say that I had a typical upbringing. Neither of my parents worked, which is very unusual. My father was born legally blind. Maybe that's why I'm interested in interviewing people who are blind. But his family actually paid for him to live because he couldn't really work that well. But once I was 18, I was on my own. And I had to pay for my own education. I didn't want to take out a loan. I mean, even at that age, I kind of instinctually knew I didn't want to be in debt, which is a good thing. And I knew you could do it by paying for it. You're on your own. And I did it myself. I left my house at 7 a.m. to work full time, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., and went to school 7 to 10 every night. And I didn't get home till 10:30 at night, and I barely got sleep. I'd get up and I'd do it again until I graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration from Arizona State University. I could have quit. It was tempting, I'm sure. But, it was having those hours. It was just tough, but I could have felt sorry for myself, like somebody should have helped me pay for it, or but I just took a job and I did it. My parents never really expected me to go to college. I just instinctually knew that it would be better if you did. And I worked for decades in different sales jobs, selling everything from software to pharmaceuticals. And I eventually worked for a company who was nice enough to pay for one of my degrees, my master's, which was nice. And it made me appreciate distance learning. And I started to teach online classes, and I thought it would be interesting just to teach more. And I thought, well, maybe if I got a PhD, and I wanted to see how hard it would be to get a doctorate. Apparently, it's actually pretty hard. Did learn that. But I had my PhD, and I thought, well, I want to teach more classes. And I ended up teaching, I say I teach more, I've taught more than 1,000 business courses. It was probably close to 2,000 at this point. I actually became the program chair for the MBA program at the Forbes School of Business, where I was part of a lot of activities there. But actually that started off my speaking and my interviewing career, because I did a little bit of speaking for Forbes then. And I was fortunate that the first person I ever interviewed was a billionaire named Ken Fisher, who was nice enough to let me interview him, which I don't even know why I thought I could, but I thought it would be interesting to ask him some questions when he came to speak for us. But when I left that job, I just decided that the next logical opportunity was to continue my speaking and consulting, and because I did a little of that, and I thought it'd be something I want to do more. So I had somebody interview me so I'd have more data for my website. And the first person who contacted me to do an interview was a man who had a nationally syndicated radio program. And I had just interviewed Ken Fisher, and I liked that experience. So I asked him what it would take, to get that job. And he said he could get me a spot on the radio station, but I had to figure it out in 2 weeks. And so basically I created a show from scratch. I had to get the guests, I had to get the ads, I had to create everything from learning the audio editing and the graphic creation, everything in 2 weeks. And, it's tough, but, I went to YouTube, I went to Guitar Center stores, I asked questions about equipment, something I'd never done, but, that was 2 years ago, and more than 700 guests later, my show's been nominated as a top business growth podcast. And I've interviewed top leaders like Steve Forbes and all the people I mentioned previously. And it would have been easy to tell myself I couldn't possibly learn a radio show in 2 weeks. Instead, I told myself, just try it. I can do it. And apparently I tell myself I can do a lot of crazy things. And therefore, people often ask me about my day because I do a lot. And I have to say I get up as early as like 4 a.m. to grade papers because I still work for up to 8 universities at a time. So if I'm lucky, I get to sleep till 4:30. But usually I don't get a lot of sleep in the morning, but I go to bed early. But I want to make sure I get my grading done before I run my radio show, again, without help, which means I do everything from getting the guests to the graphics and all that. I also run my company, Tenera, where I speak as an author and I write books and give speeches like this one, or train individuals and organizations, or speak at events and run day-to-day operations of the company. And there's a lot of networking and going to luncheons and events and things like that. But what I really like to do is to be sure I turn off my phone by like 5 p.m. at night. And then, I spend that time with my family and my husband, and I say yes to opportunities as I can, but I like to keep my weekends for family as much as I possibly can. I tend to work a couple hours in the morning just to get some grading in, but and I do try to get on my exercise bike about an hour a day. But anybody who knows me, I might call them and talk to them while I'm exercising so they know I'm going to be out of breath, because I'm a multitasker. But I do work at least 12 hours a day, and most days it's tough. But, I do that because, I have worked the traditional 40-hour days in the past, and I have worked far fewer hours. And it's a personal decision that people must make. I decided I wanted to work those hours because I want to retire and not think about it someday. So if I work them now, I don't have to worry when I get older, and my husband and I can travel and do what we want without worrying about money. So I just have always been a planner. I always think about the future. And I think it's important to think what you will need to do so you don't run into just disappointment later, because it's a lot harder to make money when you're older. And you can't count on your parents leaving you money or winning the lottery. Well, even though my mom thinks that could still happen. But I don't believe in entitlement. No one owes you anything. And if you believe you deserve something just because you were born to someone who has it, and you're setting yourself up for failure. And so, as I said, I paid for my own college, my wedding, my everything, my businesses, and I could stay home and let people pay for me, but I'm not going to do that. And I believe if you're physically and mentally capable, you should do everything you can to push yourself just a little more each day. And if you have a little voice in your head telling you that you can't do something, then you can't. And if you let the voice tell you that you can, I believe you can. I spend a lot of time working with people developing their curiosity. I'm the curiosity expert. And there's 4 things I learned in my research about curiosity, is that what can hold you back from being curious is that there's 4 things really. There's fear, assumptions, technology, and environment. But if you can recognize the things you fear, adjust the voice in your head that makes incorrect assumptions, embrace technology, and just realize the impact your experiences of your environment have had in your life on your decisions, I believe you can truly embrace curiosity, which will lead to motivation and ultimately success. So the real trick is that you must start today, and every day you put off striving for your next goal is a day wasted. Thank you.